Roger. What's your drive power to get a KW out?
Well, I'm driving it right now around 95 watts. I think 1 kW out is probably around 90 or 95 watts. With 100 watts, it'll drive it up to about 1150 or so. Go ahead.
Roger. Do you have much experience, as far as looking at the internal metering of the SB-220? Does it seem to be fairly accurate as far as the output meter?
It looks like, to me, I haven't looked at the grid circuit so much, but certainly the plate circuit is just a divider resistor across the meter itself, and we actually measure current through that divider resistor, and seems to be accurate. Before I changed it over to Harbo's modification, why the original HEATHKIT showed me about the same thing, about 3 kW in the SSB position. So I think that's fairly accurate. I think you can drive these things pretty hard. I have a the Yaesu FTDX 3000 that I'm driving it with, and that's about is limited at 100 watts. Some fellas that have a 5,000 and so forth that have the capability of driving up to 200 watts. At 150 watts, you start to hit saturation, which is about 1,400 watts output, and they will drive. If you drive it into saturation, you can drive it up to around 1,900 watts output with a couple of hundred watts input, but at that point you're in saturation, which is going to splatter, etc. But I'm pretty happy with the amplifier. I have an Amertron AL811 that I was using, and then I ran into this amp at an estate sale, and I thought, no, I always wanted to run the 3-500s, and they're healthy too, much better than the 811s, of course, as far as dissipation goes. Now, up here on the high end of the band, my SWR is starting to move up on the beam a little bit, probably in excess of about 2 or 2.5. I work a lot of CW, and so my beam is tuned for the low end of 20, and down there, I have very low SWR. So, it's a trade-off. I don't like to run a tuner if I can help it, because that's just eating up power for protection of your output tubes, and that's about it. And so I try and tune the antennas a little better. The beam here is a Force 12 compact. I live in a limited kind of neighborhood here with a healthy HOA, and they want to limit antennas. So we put up a tower and beam that is hidden behind a couple of palm trees. It's up about 35 feet, and get away with it. Nobody complains. I don't know with the new amp if they're going to complain about any RFI coming through. I hear it in my wife's speakers for her computer, but the beam is pretty much right over top of where she is, and I'm sure we're in a real strong RF field there, and probably the speakers have no protection of that stuff getting into them. So that's about it. But I like the amp very, very much. The only other modification was I put an EMI filter in the input AC lines to try and keep any of that out of my household AC. And other than that, buttoned it up, turned it on, and it seems to work fine. Go ahead.
Roger that. Are you running it on the 115 or the 230 volt circuit?
I'm on 230 right now. I put it on 115. initially when I got it, because that's the way it was wired, but the house circuit here with what I have coming over to it just couldn't support the draw of the amplifier, and I had an electrician come in and run a 220 line from the box dedicated to the amplifier. So that holds it up a lot better, and I think it's a better deal all the way around. Good.
Roger, kind of got conditions dropping down a little bit. So the I've not really seen the schematic for the SB-220, but what you're saying is the output power calculations to the meter are really a function of the current in the output circuit?
Yeah, for the power supply, as I say, the high voltage side is goes through a resistor string there and is reading across. I think it's a 5.6K resistor that's in parallel with the meter. So effectively, you're reading a current through the 5.6K resistor, and that seems to be very accurate. Now, there are a lot of manuals on the internet. In fact, if you want to give me your web email address, I'd be glad to email the manual and also several modification articles that I found that deal with modifications of various circuits in the 220, including QSK. If you're going to work CW that way. Go ahead.
Roger, yeah, I really appreciate that. If you can copy, I'll give it to you now.
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
All right, it's TraxJim, TRAXJIM, at AOL.com, AOL.com, Roger.
Okay, TRAXJIM at AOL.com.
Roger, Trax, TRAXJIM, all lower caps.
Okay, I'll send it the next 10 minutes. Just have to fire up the computer here, which was on last night, but we had a thunderstorm and power went off, and my UPS is disconnected, so it dropped the power out. So as soon as I fire that up, I'll send you what I have, because I have collected quite a bit of stuff on the 220. I'm an electronics engineer, but I like to go and see what others have done and so forth, and wanted to make sure before I fired this up for the long haul at higher power that the power supply was in good shape, and I wasn't about to lose a cap or blow a diode out or something like that, and that's what I did. So I will send that off to you again, and give me your call again. I don't know, I just didn't make a note of it. Go ahead.
Roger. It's Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor. Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor. The name's Jim, and we're located near Louisville, Kentucky, actually just across the river on the Indiana side from Louisville, downtown Louisville, about 3 miles from here. Roger.
Oh, Roger. Okay, very good, Jim. Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor. And if this amp is doing anything close to what yours is, why, you sound just really good. Probably about 15 over 9 in here this morning, and the band is just really lousy. It is very, very noisy for me. Generally, I read the guys in Wisconsin very good in the morning, and they were down in the noise pretty much today. So, in fact, I put the headset on just so I could hear them a little better. But you're an armchair copy right out of the speaker. Go ahead.
Roger. We have a YouTube page called QSO-VLOG, where we do QSOs from various. We've been doing a lot of VHF repeater long distance stuff. Worked cross mountain a couple of times last week, which is about 240 miles. And right now we're doing this QSO, matter of fact, that I'd like to post up there, and you could be able to hear your audio. We don't do anything acoustic. It's all direct, just somebody putting a mic in front of a speaker just sounds like you know what. But so we take all our stuff direct. So if you would go to YouTube and do a call letter search, Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, that would take you to the QSOs. We've got about 68 of them now. And one of them is a list of all of them. Right there at the top of that page is a list of all of them. And we'd probably post this one right there just below Art Bell. Roger, Roger.
Oh, Roger, Roger. Well, that's very interesting. I have had times, and I actually have the capability of doing it, but I haven't had guys record the QSO and then play it back over the air. One fellow in Brazil I was talking to a few weeks ago did that, and he said, "You want to hear what it sounds like?" But the VHF, very, very interesting. I don't do very much VHF. I guess because I got burned out on it. I've always been an HF kind of guy and a contester, and worked a lot of nets and things like that. And moved out to Colorado, and the only thing the club wanted to do out there was mess with their repeater up on top of the mountain, and not much VHF, and that sort of disturbed me a little bit, and I just got tired of it. But I will say I've had an interesting occurrence about 2 weeks ago now. I guess I looked at 6 meters to see if that was, 15 was open and 10 was open, and I thought I'd look at 6, and I could hear some stuff coming through on 6, and I fired up on 6 with just 100 watts into my tri-bander because I don't have a 6-meter antenna, and I thought, well, it's not going to be a real good match, but at least it's something up there. And darn, it worked 8 stations on 6 on sporadic E opening. That was around the first of the month, I guess, and that was good. From Florida, worked up through your neck of the woods, and then up into Illinois and Iowa and so forth. And I'm sure guys there had much better rigs than I did, but it was enough to get through. And it wants to make me put up a 6-meter beam and start working that a little bit, which can be interesting. But I, in Colorado, worked a lot of repeaters and links on down on some of the packet stuff and so forth down into New Mexico and even Texas by linking packet nodes up, and that was also interesting on VHF. Go ahead.
Roger, Roger. I didn't get the name. Could you give me your name in that way?
Oh, the name is Bill, and as they say, I'm in Merritt Island, Florida, which is about, my home is about 5 miles from the Kennedy Space Center. We can watch the rockets take off from our backyard and hear the thunder and see their exhaust quite well. And when SpaceX brings one of their boosters back, why we see the booster come back and then hear the sonic boom from it, etc. So we're very much in the space age down here. Go ahead.
Roger, Roger. My hometown is West Palm Beach. Been quite a while since I've been down there, but that is home, as a kid. And my dad was in concrete construction and did some of the work on some of the launch pads down at Cape Kennedy during the day. I'm sure they've probably all redone a lot of that, but I know exactly the area that you're talking about. You know, when you're away from an area for a while, you just remember the good things, and I'm sure if I got back there, I would remember the mosquitoes and the no-see-ums and all that stuff, Roger.
Roger. Well, I grew up in Vero Beach, and so we weren't too far away from you. You know, at that point, why we were watching Palm Beach television, etc. And I remember it all, and things have really changed down here, and I can't say for the better. They just keep building and so forth. Luckily, Merritt Island and Cocoa Beach hasn't changed a whole lot, and it's still as it was maybe 30, 40 years ago. I met my wife here 49 years ago, and when it came time to retire, why, this is where she wanted to retire, and it has you know, really worked out fine for us. And I'll say that mosquito control has done a pretty good job of eliminating a lot of the mosquitoes that used to be prevalent. You can actually walk outside most of the time, even in the early evening or early morning, and not get bit up. So it's nice, and of course it's nice to have the warm weather down here year round. After Colorado, where we were pushing 6 foot of snow out of the driveway, why it certainly is a change. Well, Jim, let me let you go there. I have a couple things to do this morning. I will get the computer fired up and send all this documentation over to you. It is the original construction manual for the SB-220, 221, and then I have several addendums that have been written by various people that show modifications, you know, to power supply, to surge protection, to the QSK keyers and things like that, and a pretty good rundown on power testing and so forth for the amp itself. So I was fortunate to find those things, and I'm happy to pass them over to you, you know, because it's nice to have schematics, etc., and especially the original assembly manual that you can look up if you have a broken wire or something else and say, where did this wire originally go? And you see it on the manual and see, oh yeah, this is where it should be, etc., etc. So that makes a big difference as far as I'm concerned, and it's nice to have. So let me hand this back to you for a final, and Jim, I'll say 73s, and perhaps we can keep in touch. And I'd like to know how you make out with your 220 there. KC9VKV from K2PAA.
Roger, Bill. 3 is that away, sir. Enjoyed the QSO, and like I say, I'll probably have this posted by tomorrow morning there, and it will be, you know, on the call letter search on YouTube, and be right at the top of the page on the list. Like I say, there's about 68 or so, and this will be number 2 in that, just below Art Bell. So 3's that away, and enjoy the day, and I've enjoyed it. I'll probably label it something like SB-220 to SB-220 or something like that. 3's that away, Bill, and this is KC9VKV. We'll be clear.
All right, 73s, have a real good day. Bye.